Assalamualaikum and hi. Previously, we have created a login interface, just like the one you have seen here. And if I do a preview, you can see that I can actually input the username and also the password, for example, ABC123. But the problem is if I click on login, nothing will happen. And in this video, I'm going to show you how we can actually create an interactive login interface. But before we move on to that part, I'm going to do some little modifications of the login interface. Because as you can see here, when I input the password, I can actually see the password in plain text, where as I type in my password, you can see that it's actually ABC123. Of course, this is not what we want. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to replace this input text field with another component within the string control here, which we call as the password field. So first, I'm going to delete this text field, and I'm going to drag and drop the password field, as you can see here, to my password here. And now if I do a preview again, you can see that now if I put in my username, and as for the password, let's say I put in ABC123, you can't see my password. So this is one of the kind of like a secure features that we can introduce to our login interface. Now moving on, we are going to add the interactiveness into our login interface, where whenever user click on the login button, the authentication process will be triggered, where in this case is we are going to check on the username and password. In order for us to do that, you can first double click on the login button. So once you double click on the login button, it will automatically bring you to this method. So this is a private void JButton1 actionPerformed method, and the authentications should be happen within this method. Right, before we go into this method, I'm going to show you here the other codes that link to this method. So here, if you can see, this is the login button which we have created, JButton1, the login button. And whenever we create the button, an action listener has been automatically attached to this button, which is JButton1 add action listener. You do not need to write it yourself, because whenever you create the button using the drag and drop features in NetBeans IDE, this has been automatically created for you. Now let's go back to our method. I would just declare string username is equal to check GUI coding, and string password is equal to ABC123. Assume that these are the correct username and password. So what I want to do here is whenever the user input the username and password, I want to get that username and password and compare it with my predefined username and password, as you can see here. So in order for me to get the username and password from the input text field, I would need to do JText field 1.getText and JPasswordField 1.getText. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do a system.out.println without doing the comparison first. Okay. So copy and paste it here. Now save it, and I'm going to run the project. You can run the file here. And now if I put in check GUI coding and my password is, let's say, ABC123, I click on the login. So if you notice, I have this check GUI coding and ABC123 here. So I managed to get the username and password input by the user. So assume that I change it to, let's say, hello world. And my password is just 123, and I click on the login button. So you can see here, hello world 123. So now we managed to get the text from the user input. What we're going to do next is we will need to compare these with the predefined username and password. Now I'm going to create another variables here. Username input is equal to, and string here, password input, okay, which indicates the username and password input by the user. Of course, I will need to remove these extra brackets here. And then I'm going to do a simple comparison here, which I say if my usernames, okay, is equals, okay, equals to, here I will need to put in the username, the predefined username, and we'll need to use a logical AND operator, and my password input is equals to password here, password, okay, then I'm going to do something. So for now, to test if this work, I'm just gonna put in system.out.println login successfully, okay. Then I can put in an else statement here saying that system.out.println login failed. Okay. Now I'm going to save it and run my file again, or you can run the project. So here, assume that I'm putting in the correct username and password, which is Chiku coding and ABC123. I click on login. You can see here, login successful. Now, let's say if I put in the wrong username and password, hello 123. So I get login fail. Well, let's try, for example, if the username is correct and the password is incorrect. So here I get login fail as well. Okay. Now we want to kind of like enhance this interface rather than just printing the output here in the console. What we want to do is we want to print something to the interface. So now if we can go back to the design here, I'm going to first resize my JFrame and also my JPanel so that I can have a space to add in some extra information. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a label under the login button, and I'm going to resize it. And of course, I will remove the value within that label. Well, I know that there's JLabel tree, okay? So now I remove the value from the label. If we look into the interface here, you won't see anything, okay? But now if I go back to my source here, which is my coding here, what I'm going to do here is, on top of course, doing the system.out.println, I'm going to use another method and link that with the label which I've just created. So here I'm going to put JLabel3, okay, the label which I have just created, and dot setText, which means I'm going to add some text to that JLabel3. And of course, the text that I'm going to put in will be logged in successfully. And I'm going to copy this, and else here will be login fail. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to run this again. So now, if I put in Chiku coding, remove that, ABC123. If I click on login, so you'll see here login successfully, okay. And let's say if I'm putting in the wrong username, and click on login, you'll see login failed. Well, of course, in the real world, if the login fail, you'll see this message. And if login successfully, you'll be redirected to another interface. But for simplicity, in this case, I'm just going to demonstrate to you how you can actually make an interactive login interface by modifying the actionPerformed method within your Java code. Thank you very much.